What's going on? What's hot? What's hip? What's happening? What's shaking on your Wednesday? We here at the Tom Gully Show, we love Hump Day, and we hope you are getting the full, total, and complete amount of hump that you so desperately crave and you so rightfully deserve. We'd like to welcome everybody from the Dabbleverse and all parts non-Dabbleverse. If you at this juncture would like to call in, the number is at the bottom of the screen, 972-994-6822. And if you'd like to get some merchandise, you can head on over to the merchandise place. It's in the description on YouTube, and it's also right there at the bottom of the screen. New feature, if you'd like to contribute to this show, just head on over to PayPal. It's oneletterman@live.com. And we wouldn't be mad at you if you did that. That's the thing, we really don't matter. But let me tell you about the Concorde. Yes, the Concorde. The Concorde was a supersonic commercial jetliner designed to travel over Mach 2. When super cruising, we'll get to super cruising in a second. That's 1,350 miles per hour to you and me. And it was a beautiful aircraft, as you can see on screen there. 202 feet long, a wingspan of 84 feet, powered by four Rolls-Royce MK610 turbojets with afterburners. Development took 7 years from 1969 to 1976, had a number of innovations. It's an incredible feat of technological achievement. Curved wings, don't often see curved wings on an aircraft. A variable air engine intake, ramp system controlled by digital computers. That had never been done before. And that super cruise we talked about earlier, 60,000 feet. Normal aircraft only travel at 30,000 feet, and we'll get to some of that a little bit later. They had what we call thrust by wire to the engines and flight control, not to mention the braking system. That means, excuse me, the ground computer communicated to the computer on the aircraft and controlled the speed, the altitude, the angle, all that stuff. That was a complex air data computer monitoring all in-flight parameters, never done before. So what was a trip on the Concorde like? Well, in just under 3.5 hours, now that's faster than it takes to get from New York to Los Angeles on a regular airplane. It would get from New York to London twice as fast, even faster than a normal aircraft that would take 8 or 9 hours. It cost, at the time, $12,000 round trip. So that's $6,000 one way. It had a dedicated lounge before boarding, super opulent, super exclusive, right? It had this thing where traveling Mach 2, 1,300 miles an hour, 60,000 feet. Now, what did that mean? That meant at altitude, you could actually see the curvature of the earth. You could see weather patterns underneath the aircraft. And the edge of the horizon, if you were looking out the front of the plane, was black because you could actually see the part of the earth that the sun was not hitting. How about that? The windows were not that big. They were pretty small to avoid cracks because that thing was traveling at Mach 2. The fuselage, I can just show you the inside of the aircraft here. The fuselage was like narrow. There was only 4 seats, single aisle, very, 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 very narrow. And only 2 airlines ever flew the Concorde, British Airways and Air France. 92 to 120 passengers only. So you're asking yourself, this thing was amazing. What happened to it? What would make you believe that this awesome, gets there really fast aircraft would ever stop flying? Positive Patriot says, do you really think it's curved? What, the Earth? Yeah, I think it's curved. It's not flat. You know. Karen Garvey says, oh my heavens. Yes. Karen Garvey also says, so much room. Yeah, look at those seats. They're nice, but they're not like opulent. The opulence was in that dedicated lounge and stuff. And of course, the crew was opulent. They came and they really over-serviced you. Positive Patriot says, no, I mean the wings. Yeah, I'll show you in a minute. They're curved. The wings are curved. Check it out. Yeah, that's a curved wing there, Daddy-O. That's a curved wing. I don't know if you can see the curvature in any of the other photos I have, but yeah, it was curved. So what ended the Concorde? Well, how about that? Yeah, that's pretty much what ended the Concorde. One spectacular accident, just one. By the way, 972-994-6822 if you'd like to comment and be on the air and say bad things to me. On July 25th, 2000, Air France flight 4590, a Concorde passenger jet on an international charter flight. It was chartered by a German company. It wasn't one of their regular commuter flights. It was going from Paris to New York, and it crashed shortly after takeoff, killing all 109 people on board and 4 on the ground. It was the only fatal Concorde accident during its 27-year operational history. Okay. I don't know what this means, AVRO. Maybe you can explain that to me. Positive Patriot says, whoa. Yeah, this photo, very famous. You can actually see at the edge of that wing where it was starting to get up to speed and distort the air. Just a slight bit of turbulence there. But while taking off from Charles de Gaulle Airport, the aircraft ran over some debris on the runway, causing one of those tires you see, that's extended for takeoff, to explode and disintegrate. Fragments from the tire, launched upwards at great speed by the rapidly spinning wheel, violently struck the underside of the wing, damaging parts of the landing gear. And that meant you could not retract those landing gear. Now, that aircraft was extremely aerodynamic. The slightest disturbance in that aerodynamic shape was going to create problems. But another problem, perhaps a bigger one. It caused the integral fuel tank to rupture. Huge amounts of fuel leaking from this rupture ignited, and that's what you see in the photo before you. And it caused a loss of thrust in the left-hand side engines 1 and 2. And you can see there, I'll show you another photo real quickly. You see those 2 black boxes there. That's where the engines were, in those rectangles there. Now, those are actually air intakes, the black boxes. But yeah, it caused the loss of thrust on the left-hand side. And the aircraft did lift off, as you can see. But the loss of thrust and the high drag from the extended landing gear and the flight damage that was caused to the flight controls by the fire made it impossible to maintain control. The jet crashed into a hotel nearby 2 minutes after takeoff. Unfortunately, there is a transcript of that communication between the pilots and air traffic. The air traffic could actually see what was happening as it took off. I mean, that's impossible to miss. All 9 crew and 100 passengers on board were killed, as well as those 4 people we mentioned, and they were in the hotel that it struck. 6 other people in the hotel were critically injured. Now, in the wake of the disaster, the entire Concorde fleet, there were only 6 of them, was grounded. It returned to service on November 7th, 2001, following the implementation of various modifications to the airframe, but to limited commercial success. The type was finally retired by Air France on May 2003 and by British Airways in November of the same year. And that was what ended the Concorde. Unbleached says, what up, Positive Up Patriot? And what up, Tom? Hey, what up, Unbleached? 972-994-6822 is the number to call if you'd like to talk about the Concorde or today's eulogy for Ralph Sorella by Stuttering John, which was basically Stuttering John saying the most terrible and awful things he could possibly muster, always followed by, we weren't friends, but I am sad for his family. Yeah. Because I can imagine at Stuttering John's behest, the family of Ralph Sorella there at the wake or the funeral or the ceremony of life or whatever they have, all sitting around dabbing tissues and napkins to their face going, if it wasn't for Stuttering John giving us his condolences, I don't know if I could make it through this day. Oh, brother. Let's see here. Dr. Scotty Jones says, I live near the Canadian Warplane Heritage Museum. It has one of the only two flyable AVRO Lancaster. Yeah, well, here is one of the planes, which is on display. Now, this one obviously isn't flyable, but as you can see, it does have a set of stairs. You can climb up and walk around in it and such. One of the last flights was grounded and has never, it's where it landed. It's at that airport. It's never left there. It's in a hangar somewhere and it's never going to leave there. Let's see, we got to that. Dr. Scotty Jones is saying hi. Tyler Schollenberger, he's from the Quad City. Yeah, I just thought I'd see more wheelchairs in the Quad Cities. I don't know what's up with that, but at any rate, the Concorde. It was always a thing you'd see in movies and on TV, and it was only for, was it Phil Collins during Live Aid famously performed in London and in Philadelphia, and he took the Concorde across the ocean to be able to do that. So the Concorde, one of the miracles of aviation, it simply has never been replicated. They're never going to do it again. There is some talk about having another supersonic jet. They've mentioned it several times. Maybe they'll do it several times. But one of the problems with the Concorde was that it wasn't that much of a commercial success. The high cost of maintaining it, the high cost of what they call cost per mile, required that particular aircraft be completely full in order for them to make any profit whatsoever. And it rarely was. It just was a little too exclusive. It just was a little too pricey at the time. And I believe the cost for one flight in today's dollars, you have to remember, it was 21 years ago, the last time this thing flew, and it was $6,000 at the time. That's almost $25,000 one way in today's money. There's just a certain clientele, the ultra rich, those folks who for business have some reason to travel that quickly with the advent of internet technology and Zoom and all the face-to-face ways to meet over the computer now. Who knows if it would be successful or not. I always dreamed of riding on the Concorde, though. They say that there was a huge amount of memorabilia that you could get from the Concorde. There were luggage tags and coasters. The silverware was designed by the same guy that designed the cabin, and it was sort of Art Deco, and it was always stolen by the passengers. Andy Warhol famously asked a passenger next to him who had just finished dining, "Are you going to keep your silverware?" And they said no. And Andy Warhol just pilfered them right away. But the real takeaway, they say, from the Concorde was the experience. It wasn't a T-shirt or a travel bag or any of those things. It was the actual experience of traveling on the Concorde. So at any rate, Karen Garvey The lovely and talented Karen Garvey says, when I was a child, my friends would tell me stories about camping in the woods. Never had an interest in camping except for campfire horror stories. Thank you, Tom. I get to experience the campfire. Well, yes, this is a bit of a horror story, his program. Let's see here. Dr. Scotty Jones, to fly on the Lancaster bomber is $3,500 for a half an hour to Niagara Falls and back to Hamilton. Well, that's interesting news from our Canadian friends. 972-994-6822 is the number to call if you'd like to talk. And we do have merch. It's in the description. And a new thing, if you'd like to contribute to the program, we're not monetized yet. We're about 1,000 hours away, frankly, viewing hours from being monetized. So if you'd like to contribute a little to the show, I've never posted this before. First time on the show tonight. You just go to PayPal, and it's one Letterman, the number one in Letterman at live.com. And that's how you find me. The number one Letterman is because I won the Letterman Scholarship, and I'm the first one. So ha, 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 ha. The Wolf, the legendary Wolf, says, if I could be the pilot, I'm in. I think the only problem there, Wolf, is that air traffic control would hear something like this. Yes, we'd like to report that the Concorde is being flown at nearly Mach 4. The pilot has apparently doubled the speed of the aircraft. That's really the only drawback I think we could find for the Concorde, if the Wolf indeed was piloting it. If he was piloting it, right? That's what I say. Anyway, let me get a better picture of it. There's the Thrill Seeker photo. And this is really the one you want to see. Now, if you'll notice the nose of it, the nose is pointed down slightly. Okay. And that was for takeoff. As you can see, when it was at super cruising altitude, the nose would straighten. And the reason the nose was down at front, they called it the droop nose, was so that the pilots could actually see the runway and in front of them. When it was extended fully, there was no way they could see what was immediately in front of them. So that was also somewhat of an innovation. Today in the Dabbleverse, those of you who are not fans of the Howard Stern show, Howard's quote-unquote stylist and a very controversial figure on the program was a gentleman by the name of Ralph Cirilla. Now, I'll be the first to admit, Ralph was a polarizing figure. A lot of people either loved him or you hated him. I personally alternatingly loved him and hated him. He was totally brutally honest most of the time. And that's what made him lovable. He was not someone who you really hated. It was just sometimes he was annoying. And he was Dr. Scotty Jones, droop nose, like Stuttering John. Stuttering John. For those of you who don't know, Stuttering John has a bad nasal drip problem. He does this, which most of us learned how to stop doing in about first grade. And he does it constantly. I mentioned on Point Double Point that his arm has to look like a glazed donut or like it's shellacked with snot. It's just uncouth on steroids. Let's see. The Wolf says, all right, I have a tendency to make things go faster than they're supposed to. I mean, well, you do. It's not malicious. So anyway, Stuttering John today chose to give a eulogy for Ralph Cirilla. Now, Ralph was famously an extremely close friend of Howard Stern, who does not, gather close friends easily. And Ralph was his, insider, his buddy, his confidant. And importantly, if Ralph had not called up Howard Stern and said, hey, there's a party and it's got a lot of hot chicks and free food, Howard would not have left his apartment and gone to the party where he met his eventual wife, Beth Ostrowski. So Ralph is responsible for that. Apparently, Ralph had let his health go. Howard had encouraged him to get health care coverage. He didn't until probably later than he should have. He went into the hospital with an ailment, which really hasn't been disclosed, and I don't think it's that important. But they were performing a procedure on him, and his heart failed. And 58-year-old Ralph Sorella, who was, as John's earmite says, great for the show. He really was. He was great for this show. He was always a source of some sort of controversy. Karen Garvey says sad, and it is sad. Unblemished says R.I.P. Ralph. Yeah, Ralph was, I mean, there's so many great Ralph stories. The stories of him throwing up all over Howard's guest bedroom in the Hamptons and deciding he was going to be a good guy and wash the sheets, but he didn't clean the sheets before he threw them into the washer. So the washer had chunks of everything he ate in them. You almost have to buy a new washer at that point. Karen Guy says hello to John's earmites, but Stuttering John gave a eulogy, which was nothing more than him recalling every single negative thing. It would be, of course, I'm sad that Ralph dies. I never am happy when someone is passed their classes at NYU, which of course I never did. But when someone passes, I'm not happy. I'm especially sad for Ralph's family because, Ralph and I we weren't friends. I remember one time, and then boom, 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 bad thing. He just kept saying, Ralph would always find out inside information and rat people out. He was a rat. And I'm like, John, that's you. You're the rat. You're the rat. Not those other people. Karen Garvey said, Tom Gully, do you think it would have been better if John said nothing? Well, John had a point when he said, if I say nothing, I'm a jerk. And if I say something, I'm a jerk. And as Shuley mentioned, you're a jerk no matter what, John. You're starting to get the picture. But I think there's a happy medium where he could have said, look, I know a lot of people would like me to comment, and it's pretty well known John and I didn't always get along. But as a member of the show and the show family, obviously everyone, especially Ralph's loved ones, are going to be very sad about it. And I too will miss Ralph. Boom, done. End of the story. But he didn't do that. He didn't do that. The wolf says, just one little wafer. Dr. Scotty Jones says, they're only a wafer thin. People are complimenting Karen, saying hello to her. She deserves it. Dr. Scotty Jones commenting on John's comment on his attorney. The wolf says, only one thin mint. They're only a wafer thin. I'm going to sick up. Well, John claims at the time that he had had a bike accident, I believe, and that he had a concussion, said he went to the emergency room, but then he showed up to the Hamptons anyway, up to Howard's house. And Howard commented that John then proceeded to drink and eat all day long, and maybe had done some other things. And that's why he got sick. It wasn't because of some fictitious concussion that even the emergency room didn't say he had. But that was Ralph, that was Ralph. He had a famous escapade where he went up with Howard in a limo to a Tom Petty, sort of a concert, private show. I think it was an exclusive concert that was thrown by a record label, thrown by Sirius, and went up to that, got smashed, refused to leave with everyone else, they all did leave, and they went to a bar in the Hamptons. Howard went home, and John got smashed at the bar and was dancing with some older lady. And when they all wanted to leave, Ralph did not. So Artie, Mr. Big Heart, Mr. Generous, well documented, gave John money for a cab, I think, or a bus or some way to get home. Gave him $300. And John got a driver and was looking for Howard's house. He couldn't find it. He's driving all over the Hamptons where these rich people live. He couldn't find it. And he ended up, I believe it was Artie's driver, drove him all the way back to Jersey. John didn't even tip him. And Howard played John's phone calls. Hey, I just remembered I left my bag at your house, and could you put some of those cookies in the bag? It was just a mess. I don't remember all the details perfectly. The Wolf says, sounds like a Big John story. Oh, yes, Big John. Yeah, there's some stories there. The Wolf says, we left our blood and skin at the 6 Inn. Yes. But Ralph was famous for these escapades. There's the escapade where he allegedly took $100 off of a communal bill at Nobu. There's another gambling story where he allegedly lifted $100, and of course John knew nothing about this. There's the famous Ralph escapade where he stayed at Sam Simon's house for an extended period of time. But Ralph, when he called in, you would be on bated breath. You would be waiting. Is Ralph going to say something I totally agree with, or is Ralph going to say something I totally disagree with? And Ralph had very, very almost standards as high as the Wolf's when it came to attractive women. When they would rate women for an ability to be in Playboy, Ralph was merciless, absolutely merciless. And you'd be sitting there going, what's this somewhat homely guy? Where does he get off? And, that was Ralph's thing. Famous for dressing Howard and numerous other things. But Stuttering John had not one nice thing to say. He gave good airplay. He gave good airtime. That's what he said. He supplied good airtime. And it's like, he didn't supply any airtime, John. Do you know the English language? He filled airtime well, but he didn't supply airtime. Nobody does that. It just exists. There's a clock, and maybe I'm pedantic, but that's just the way it is. Anyway, Karen Garvey is hopefully enjoying the program. I'm happy that you are, if you indeed are. But anyway, I will be doing a show tomorrow, by the way, and I'll let you in a little sneak peek. Tomorrow's show is going to be about Balloon Boy and the Dabbleverse, anything we have. But in general, John, when eulogizing, as he said, which wasn't a eulogy, it was just dumping on Ralph for what had to be 45 minutes. He just didn't stop. Karen is apparently enjoying the show. Good. While he was eulogizing him, he brought up every bad thing he could think of about Ralph, every single one. And Ralph was discovered by Howard. I think he was working at a parking lot and managed to strike up an accord with Howard. He started calling in on the show, I believe, when he was in high school. And he would call in with his mother. Howard mentioned today that it was obviously a very, very, very sad day for him. Fred Norris, boy, did he have some accurate comments. And you knew he was talking about John without saying his name. And that's the Fred way. Fred would not stoop to mention John's name. But he said, Ralph, after he sort of left the show, and I think that was a phasing out probably that has to do with Howard's current content on his show more than anything. Did he say anything bad about Howard? Nope. Did he go off and write a book and trash Howard? Nope. Did he go on to every program he possibly could and trash Howard? Nope. They really, really remain quite close. And apparently Howard's wife, Beth, is going to be participating and setting some things up for John's funeral or whatever celebration of life they choose to have for him. But the Wolf says, I think your next show should be about the black spot. I'll tell you what, you fill me in on that, and that'll be the show after the Balloon Boy episode. But today's quote unquote eulogy by John, and I know we all can't wait for John to do the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar eulogy. Today's eulogy was so comical, it was sad. I don't think John elicited the kind of sadness that he had intended to, but for all the good times, for all the laughs, even for those times, I mean, there were times when you would love seeing Ralph be in the hot seat, like when he threw up in Howard's guest room, like when he had the crazy episode in the Hamptons trying to get back, and numerous other escapades. If you have all of your, you may have some of your own, you can list them in the chat if you'd like. Karen Garvey says, Kareem eulogy. Yes, John will be out there. You know, I come here not to bury Kareem, but to praise him, or whatever he's going to say. But, you know, he could, I know that in John's mind, he was being eloquent and respectful. And that's the sad thing, because he was neither of those things by a long shot. By a long shot. What do you want me to lie and say we were best of friends? Well, there's that old saying, if you can't say something nice about somebody, don't say anything at all. There are people in the world that, you know, for instance, Mike Guido. Only one person that's watching right now is laughing, but Mike Guido, if Mike Guido was to pass, I would say, you know, Mike had his fans, he had his detractors, but in the end, he was a man who was dedicated to his craft, and I'm sure he would be missed by many people. And so Godspeed to Mike Guido. That's all I would say. I wouldn't go into a long thing. There's another guy, and the Wolf is aware of, that was from Newcastle, Indiana, that I'm not going to say his name, but if I was giving his eulogy, and by the way, I could have, because he's no longer with us, I would have said as little as possible. I would have said, well, apparently he was quite an athlete and respected by all those who knew him well. And I hope his family and his friends can get through this difficult time, and Godspeed that person's name. Let's see what we got here. Yes, Kareem eulogy, and but Howard could trust Ralph until the end. Yes, but Fred put it best. Did Ralph go off and do all the things that a certain other person has done? Named what was his name again? Stuttering John. Yeah, no, he didn't do any of those things. He didn't do any of those things. John also today alluded to the fact that somebody wanted him to do a show. A producer had called it. And then, you know, Joe, the producer, popped in and said, yeah, and Anthony Cumia called him just earlier in the same week. And it's like, yeah. Hello, is this Stuttering John? Yes, this is Cecil B. DeMille. Would you like a show? Hello, John. This is the Learning Channel. Yeah, we're going to run a series called Major Screw-Ups. We think you've got it. Would you like a show? Yes, I'm sure all of those things will happen. I really am. I really, really am. So anyway, end of an era. If you watched the Howard Schurz, Karen Garvey says the Learning Channel. Yeah. If you watched the Howard Stern show, Ralph was an integral, an indelible part of that program. Like him, dislike him, he was part of the fabric, and so he'll be missed. He really will be missed. The Big Kahuna says, hey, Tom, missed you, buddy. FSJ, yes, indeed, FSJ, and that great eulogy. I tried to be respectful. I just know that John in his own mind imagined people watching the program, and, you know, That's just so right, John. And dabbing their eyes. And no, I'm sorry. 972-994-6822. We've got merch in the description. And if you'd like to contribute, and boy, we sure wouldn't be upset about that, just go to oneletterman@live.com on PayPal until we get monetized, which may or may not happen in this century. I don't know. We're just going to keep at it and see what happens, man. We're just going to keep throwing strikes and see if anybody hits it out of the park. You know what I'm saying? That's what we're here for. That's what we're going to do. That's what's happening. By the way, behind me is the cockpit of the fabulous the Concorde. There, see? I'm flying, everybody. Actually, I'm in the navigator's position. So, whatever. The wolf says, wow, the wood surfing king is here. I don't know what that means. Oh, the big kahuna. That's right. The big kahuna. The big kahuna. So at any rate, if you have any questions or comments, throw them in the chat and we'll get to buttoning this thing up ASAP. And we will be doing a show tomorrow and we'll try to get these things regular. The wolf says, I prefer the wing. Well, here's a shot of the wing. Here's a beauty shot of the actual shape of the wing taken from the underside of the plane. There you go. It's a lovely wing, if you like wings. There are no, and of course, this little museum that you can go to, climb on up in there and check out the beauty that was the Concorde. It only flew two airlines, Air France and British Airways, the only two that flew the Concorde. So, trying to think of anything else that Stuttering John said today. It was just, oh boy. How about the poor Ukrainian girl that had to deliver beer to that guy? And he's just hitting on her. He's just, oh yeah, Ukraine. I stand with the Ukrainian people. We talk to the people in the Ukraine, and we don't want your support. You're a snotty, awful, smelly man who appears to have blood stains on the seats of his pants. I can't really. Karen Garvey's like, what? Oh yeah, you got a beer delivery from some Ukrainian girl. I could just hear that Uber Eats conversation. Hey, listen, Olga, I told you, you're late one more time. You got to do the Melendez delivery. No, I'm sorry. You brought this on yourself. Karen Garvey is laughing. Positive Patriot says, hell yeah, brother. Yeah. I don't know what you're saying that about, but really, considering the popularity of this show, I really don't care. Any positive comment that I can get at all, in any respect, is treasured and beloved. It's really beloved. Totally beloved. Hey, I might also mention, I was on Point Dabble Point last Friday when that whole Opie Shuley thing happened. And you wouldn't know it by anything that has ever happened. I escaped any criticism from anyone, I think, unless Kevin Brennan trashed me, which would be fine. He's every right to, and I don't blame him. But you just wouldn't know it. It's almost like I wasn't there, and it's odd to me to a certain extent, but then again, I am somewhat unremarkable. It's pretty fair criticism. The only thing that appeared as I was checking out who are these podcasts, and they were talking about how Opie completely missed a chance to be part of the Dabbleverse. And one person had a comment that said, even I think it's truck driver Andy forgot to mention Tom Gully when he mentioned who was on the show. And he did, in fact, not mention me. And then some people mentioned my Frankensteining ways of stomping around the Dabbleverse and that how badly they hated me. And somebody else said they said additional bad things. And I just put in the chat, I so would love to disagree with you, but I really can't. It's a pretty fair criticism. Let's see here. Hugh G. Almost. You almost got me. Hugh, our good friend Hugh, says he said he had 2 shirts that says, I have 2 shirts that say so. Karen Garvey says, yes, you were on Point Dabble Point. And yes, you were completely unnoticeable. I'm the second part I'm saying, Karen, not you. The Wolf says, I saw the downsized version of the wing from the inside, and it reminded me of a race car from the 50s and 60s. I did get to see it fly. Cool. And Karen Garvey says, Frankenstein's monster is my favorite monster. Well, thank you. I take that as a personal compliment because of this that's going on here. It's been commented on pretty heavily. But yeah, it's like almost, I was on a seminal moment. I'm actually on the show talking when Shuli appears and when he gets kicked off the show. And it's like I was there for it though. And there's a part of me that in Dabbleverse history, and I might mention that one very popular podcast refers to it as Tom Gully's Dabbleverse, because I'm the only person that he knows that's a part of it or talks about it, which warms my heart. It's completely undeserved, and there's really no reason to call it that. But by gosh, I'll take anything I can get. Karen Garvey says, no, yes. I mean, nobody said nothing. Nobody said, and that Tom guy, I mean, not even negative. I really, even if people say negative things, we were just talking about Ralph, then you at least know they're there. But I was like, odorless and tasteless and shapeless and like mauve on beige. And I tell you, by the way, the Contigo thermos, the official thermos of the Tom Gully Show. Oh, merch and PayPal. I'm shilling as hard as I can tonight. The Big Kahuna says, I saw the Concorde takeoff from Vegas about 25 years ago. Ground shaking, simply amazing. There you go. I agree. The Wolf says, you came, you saw, and you left. Well, I came and I saw, and I did all the 3 of those things, and nobody noticed. Nobody, not one funny line, not one acute, insightful observation. Really just, Terry Nee says, you are the Edward Everett, the Lincoln, you were the Edward Everett at the Lincoln address. I really was. I was there for it. On site, front and center. I was kind of a Make-A-Wish kid at that pod. I mean, it was Shuli, Zen, Joey, and me. And I guess since I haven't talked about this publicly, I'll talk about it now. When I got the call to be on Point Dabble Point, wow, I was just like, whoa, geez, me? Why me? I mean, you guys okay? But I was thrilled. I was honored. I got to be backstage before the show started with the various folks and interact with them a little bit. And I'm sure they're not looking forward to that again. Luckily, none of them had eaten recently, so there was no. But, it was cool. The show began. We had a fine show. But, I tried to do my best. And here's the big thing for me personally. Opie takes huge amounts of criticism, and a lot of it, I think, is justified in terms of what he's doing now. I don't think he's totally grasped that this ain't the old radio days, and you may have to adapt and do some things differently. You're not the big draw that you were, not that you couldn't be again. And the Dabbleverse would have been a great step forward. his show had like 100 people watching it. The Point Dabble Point had over 1,000. I think there were 1,200. There could have been 2,000 or 3,000, except, well, of course, I was on it. That's going to drive your numbers down. But I was waiting because I would have been honored to meet Opie. I think there's been a mythology, and let me first say, I am a tremendous fan of Anthony Cumia. I think he is one of the most spectacularly talented people that's ever been on the radio, and I am friends with one of the regulars on the show, a good friend, and you know, cursory friends with some of the other folks. And so this is no slight against him at all. But I think there's a mythology that Opie was just a steward of the show, or wrote the run list down, or was just kind of the guy that ran the engine and made sure they hit the brakes. Opie, if you look at the history of that program, was pretty hilarious at times. He's the guy that destroyed the cake on the street of that gentleman that had the cake. He's the guy that destroyed the guitar. He's the guy that threw the poker chips or whatever. He did a whole lot. Oh, he was the guy when one of Stern's fans spit on or hit one of their producers. When Master Poe took that guy down, Opie was the one that was in his face with the microphone. Now, I think there was probably a point in the show where Opie was not getting along with the rest of the people there. He was dissatisfied with the show and what was going on with it. I think he may have decided, hey, it's time for this to come to the end. And so, yeah, then maybe he was a little more withdrawn. But this mythology that he was not, wasn't for Anthony, he'd be nowhere. No, that was pretty much of a partnership in the early stages and for quite some time afterwards. So I was honored. I was thrilled to get a chance to meet Opie, and I wanted to say those words to him. I wanted to say, if nothing else, to say, hey, this is a safe haven, but to be out front and be vocal and be public about the fact that I don't believe the mythology that you were nothing more than, some sort of, vestigial straight man for that program. I don't believe that. And then he did what he did. And then I just rode the storm out to the end of the program and disappeared back into my rightful place in obscurity, where I sit now. My good friend Hugh says, love you, Tom. You're not as nearly as hateable as Phil Elmore or Joey C. I think both of those guys are awesome. And it was a pleasure for me to actually meet Joey C. Backstage. I think Joey C. is an amazing personality and heart as big as a whale. He wears it on his sleeve. He's a great guy. Phil Elmore is just good people. He's lived a pretty interesting life, and he's not shy about sharing it. And I admire him for that. Also a very intelligent man, a very eloquent man. The Big Kahuna says, even Ukraine would call Stuttering John a way to remain hygienic in parts of the human population. The Wolf says, wasn't he on Andy of Mayberry? Well, it's Opie Greg Opie Hughes, yes. But he was, you're correct. Hughes says, Opie could be hilarious at times. Anthony was hilarious all the time. I think that's correct. Opie, radio veteran, he picked his spots. He knew his role. He, after all, was the guy that had done a lot more radio between the two. And there were certain obligations in that regard that, one must adhere to. And he did those things. So I don't believe in the myth that Opie was never talented, that Opie was never part of the spectacular show that was Opie and Anthony. I also would be the first to say that I think Opie is a little like Stuttering John in that he is unduly full of himself at present. And as well as he knew radio, the internet isn't the same thing, and he should learn that. And I know he can. The hard thing to do as you get older is to put a lot of effort forth, and I mean a lot, that energy you had when you were younger, into learning and executing new things. As I sit here, not a very big audience listening to this program right now, I could be accused of being guilty of the same thing. And if I was, I'd say, hey, you probably have a point there. But I am not going, I don't know. I didn't want to get into the Dabbleverse. I'm not anxious, in that weird pronunciation he does sometimes, which is actually part of his personality. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying he does it. And brother, it ain't the year 2000 no more. It ain't 2005. It ain't 2011. And if you're going to be a big player again, you have got to quit being so thin-skinned, and you have got to start making smarter moves than expecting a show with 1,200 viewers that ended up having 10,000 total views to come on your program when it's technologically not feasible. When all you have to do is click a button, you're on their program, and their program is streaming on your channel. I think it was a bit of a misunderstanding, and I think he was on a hair trigger. I think he was looking for a reason to kick Opie off, and when he said he'd accepted a $200 super chat to not go on the program, and he felt like that was the reason he shouldn't. After you've agreed to go on someone's show, I don't know. That's kind of a backhanded move, I think. Let's put it this way. If I'd agreed to go on someone's show and they said, I'll give you $200 to not go on that show, I'd say, okay, you got a choice. You can give me the $200 and I'll tell you that I am going on that show, or you can have your $200 back. Those are your two choices. Karen Garvey says, I haven't stayed up this late in months. Sorry, I'll watch the rest of the show tomorrow morning. I love this show. Well, Karen, you're not going to miss anything because this show ain't going to be on that much longer tonight. And we are doing a show tomorrow. And Karen, I thank you so very much for your support. And I will say to you, sweet dreams. Go bravely on, gentle warrior. I'm happy that you like this show. That makes me happy. Let's see. Chris Abel says, Tom, I love your show. Boy, if you haven't been watching the replayables on Shuli Network 2, you just don't like people drinking in a sports fashion. It's kind of like the Gong Show and an AA meeting put together. And it's not an AA meeting. Those guys have a heck of a lot of fun. So I highly recommend the replayables on Wednesdays and Fridays, I believe at 9 o'clock Eastern one night, and I think maybe 10 the other. Anyway, look it up. It's the replayers on Shuli Network, the number 2. You might see me in there once in a while. And you also might get to see somebody hurl. My goal every time I go into that room is to help, to encourage, to cajole people into hurling. I want to see somebody hurl. And I'm 3 for 3. Yeah. I think, oh, wait a minute. No, I'm not. Chris Abels himself tries. That brother drank a half a case of beer. And if I'm not mistaken, those were tall boys on one of the programs. He says, you rock, brother. Hey, right back at you. Right back at you, Chris Abels. Right back at you. The Big Huna says, Abels. Yeah, Chris Abels. I'm telling you what. Ain't no party like a Chris Abels party, because the Chris Abels party don't stop. My man says, I want Tom on the show. Well, I'm generally available. Watch your numbers plummet. You know. Big K. Yeah, I'll tell you what. Shawnee hurled. Bob Levy had a little bit of spit up. Somebody else hurled on that thing too. I forget who it was. But Shawnee's was the best. Shawnee's was, and that guy, he's a warrior. He's a stone cold, dude for him putting it forth. But you can actually They play some really interesting clips from the internet, the weirdest, wildest stuff. And then they also have people that aren't even on camera that are participating and logging how many drinks they've had. And then there's also, I think you can have super chats that will force them to drink. So it's a wild show, man. Like I said, it's like Let's Make a Deal, The Gong Show, and trying to think of a drinking type show. I can't, but it's a wild show. Check it out. As a matter of fact, what you should do is go to Shuli Network 2 and just watch some of the old episodes. You'll get an idea of what's going on there. The Big Kahuna says, Chris, Tom would be a good get. Let's do it. Tom, are you in? What's not to be in? My only problem is I don't drink and I don't smoke. So I don't know what I'm going to do to participate. I was told by No Filter Paul. I don't know if any of you people know who No Filter Paul. I'm about to read something. It's going to make me laugh. I don't know how many of you know No Filter Paul, but he called me the master blank stirrer because I am kind of good at that. I always have been. You learn that playing sports, I think. I was good at it playing sports. The Wolf might recall how I was good at goading people into doing things or stuff. Not as good as the Wolf, but still, I was pretty good. The Wolf says, there ain't a man alive can drink a six-pack and stand up straight, which was the assertion of one of his college professors, which always made us laugh, especially the Wolf. The Wolf had a 6-beer mug. His mug held 6 beers. And I never saw the Wolf not able to stand up straight. And I saw him try to tackle a tree. Well, I didn't see him try to tackle the tree, but I saw the after effects. I would tell you what he said about the tree, but I can't because it has way too much profanity. Let's put it this way. The tree challenged him. And I think it was a draw. Let's see here. Chris Abel says, Tom, you can totally hang with us. No drinking required on your end. BF will drink water for you. He's a buffalo. Yeah. Well, I mean, I have something here to drink. I mean, coffee, or I got coffee. I got water. I've got watered down coffee. I got strawberry crush. Let's see here. Because Abel says, P.S. Kim, you're correct. That was one of the Wolf's college professors. Ain't a man alive can drink a 6-pack of beer and still stand up straight. And we're all looking at him like, there's only like 8,000 men on this campus right now that can do that. Good old Ball State. All right. The Wolf says, drivers Ed, Bill, Craig. Kids, let's do the quiz. I won't get into Kim Warfield and his relationship with one of his professors that involved his automobile. That's a story for another day. That's a story for another day. Or when his car was illegally towed and impounded, and well, it had to be busted out of the impound yard. Or Kim had, I believe, a broken nose in college, and they had to work on it. Well, yes, car and house of his professor. The car and the house had an unfortunate meeting. I believe that was the last class he needed to graduate to. Anyway, so the Wolf chose, of all people, me to drive him home from the hospital. And I was driving his car, the Merc. And it was a very rainy day. We came to a 4-way stop. I hit the brakes. It was ice on the road because it was Indiana. And I did it was not a 360. So it was, so 360 would have been going the same direction. So I did a see, turn once. It was 360 plus 270 to the left-hand turn we were taking. And the wolf was so gorked out on painkillers that he went, "What just happened? You're pretty good at driving, but you're never driving me again." And he doesn't even remember it. Let's see here. So 180 is going back the other way. I did a full 360 plus 270 to get that left-hand turn in the Merc, which may or may not have had the squab gun, which is a high-powered pellet gun that may or may not have been used to shoot out a whole bunch of windows in the impound yard before the Merc was sprang from the clutches of what was the name of that towing company? New I can't remember. It don't matter. I can't remember. Anyway, 972-994-6822. Let's see. Well, how long am I going to do this? I'll do this for another 5 minutes or so. Let's see. 540 plus bonus points. Wolf says, don't forget the lead pipe. How can I forget the lead pipe? How could I possibly forget the lead pipe? You cannot imagine the culture shock of going to college, and on your floor, there's a 5'10" guy that weighs about 230, 245, solid muscle. I think like a 27-inch waist or some crazy thing like that, just a total V. But the most devastating thing was the abuse. He was really good at, oh boy, was he good at the abuse, the verbal abuse. You just did not want to get in that kind of a conversation with the wolf. Golly, you slew-footed. Played soccer, so the feet were. And no matter what you said, it was like, oh, I think we shut out St. Francis. There's one guy came down. Yeah, I would have just clotheslined him. But you can't do that in soccer. Why not? Golly gumption. All right. I think that's going to do it for tonight. Listen, we've got merch. You can go to the Tom Gully Show, and there's a store. Drop down on the menu, or just go to cafepress.com/Tom Gully Show. There's a wide variety of top quality name brand items. You get something in the mail, I get a few dollars, not many. I don't mark that stuff up very much because I want people to be able to buy it. If you would like to donate until we get monetized, which is going to be never the rate we're going, all you got to do is go to the number one Letterman at live.com on PayPal. And we would love it if you would do that. And Wolf says, loved that duck walk. Well, a lot of times it was because I was injured or who knows what. I don't think I do that anymore. I am, of course, dubbed by the Wolf, the Gringo Giant. You can't tell this. We're just sitting here. I am 6'5". I am athletic with quick feet, wiry. There's so much inside baseball being played right now. At any rate, that's going to do it for tonight. I appreciate everybody showing up, the people who did. It means the world to me. Hope you're enjoying the show. I will take all the feedback you got, and everything will be groovy. So I guess the only thing left to say is Chris Abel says, love you, Tom. Peace out. Have a great night, brother. What's the PayPal, brother? It's the number. It's in the crawl here, and it's in the description on YouTube. It's the number one Letterman, because I won the David Letterman Scholarship. But it's the number one Letterman at live.com on PayPal. Will says, you forgot explosive. That's right. I am explosive. I am not a crowd favorite, however. And with all that being said, the only thing is, stop it. Stop it. Till next time, we'll see you next time.